This is Danny Bobrow, President of AIM Dental Marketing, welcoming you to this installment of the Practice Perfection web-based education series. Today's presentation is titled, Bring Life to Your Practice Through Dementia Certification. Alzheimer's disease is the sixth leading cause of death in the United States and is on the rise. 25% of the population has a genetic predisposition to getting Alzheimer's. Until now, it has been thought to be a terminal disease with no cure. Since 2017, physicians around the country have been using a method called Recode, which stands for Reverse Cognitive Decline, developed by UCLA neurologist Dr. Bredesen. In August 2022, a peer-reviewed study in the Journal of Alzheimer's Disease showed that 84% of patients improve using his method. The best drug reduces decline by only 20%. Dr. Bredesen recognizes that the dental profession is indispensable in delivering optimal success, and certification for dental professionals is now available. Certification requires no new dental skills and dramatically heightens your credibility, which in turn leads to more referrals and case acceptance. Thousands of physicians, health coaches, and patients are being taught that periodontal bacteria, airway obstruction, and mercury from amalgams are all root causes of Alzheimer's, and are encouraged to partner with certified dental professionals for both reversal and prevention. Today's presentation was to have been delivered by Dr. Charles Whitney. Regrettably, owing to a personal emergency, Chip is unable to join us today. He sends his regrets, and equally important, has made arrangements for a most worthy replacement to speak on this timely and relevant topic. Geraldine Beers has spent 39 years as a dental hygienist in both private practice and public health, and years as a program consultant and clinical instructor for a leading continuing education company. She is a founding member and past board member of the American Academy for Oral Systemic Health, and has attained status as a Bale-Donine preceptor, which is leading the way in heart attack and stroke prevention through collaborative care. As an oral systemic health pioneer, Geraldine wrote and appeared in Say Ah, the world's first documentary on oral health. She spent the last 12 years living her passion of changing people's lives through education and awareness of the body-mouth connection by coaching dental teams and helping them collaborate with the medical community. As the Director of Dental Training for Apollo Health and the COO of Complete Health Heroes, she is Recode 2.0 certified and is excited to help dental professionals expand their knowledge of the Dementia Prevention and Reversal Program to further elevate dental teams through Recode certification. As an attendee at today's event, you will learn about Alzheimer's disease and why it is now both preventable and treatable, why optimal oral health is critical to patient and practice success, the causation level evidence for oral bacteria as an important contributor to dementia, and how certification in dementia care by dental professionals can benefit patients, the practice, and you personally. As always, you are invited and encouraged to submit your questions at any time using the question button on the provided menu. If Geraldine cannot get to your question during the webcast, she has promised to do so shortly following her presentation. Attendance at today's event entitles you to apply to receive 1.5 hours of PACE-approved continuing education credit. Shortly following Geraldine's presentation, you will receive information on how to apply to receive your CE. To be eligible, you will need to successfully complete a brief quiz, as well as note the following course number, which is BEE 062223. Once again, that's BEE 062223. And now, it is my distinct pleasure to welcome to the Practice Perfection stage my friend and colleague, Ms. Geraldine Beers. Hello, Geraldine.
Hi there, Danny. Thank you so much for that lovely introduction, and thank you everyone for joining us tonight. It's my pleasure to be here. Just for clarification, Danny mentioned that I am the Director of Dental Training for Apollo Health, as well as the COO of Complete Health Heroes. So I just want to explain the relationship of these two separate entities because it causes some confusion. Apollo Health is the company that actually provides the Recode training and certification that we'll be talking about tonight. And Complete Health Heroes was created to specifically support the dental community in this endeavor. So to help with the training, to help infuse the Recode certification into your dental practice, and to help you build practice success with it. Okay, so tonight we are talking specifically about Alzheimer's disease and really what role we can play as dental professionals to help prevent it and even reverse it, believe it or not, because there's a lot that we can do, and I'm going to show you how. Unfortunately, as Danny said, Alzheimer's is on the rise, and many of us are way too familiar with it. It just touches nearly everyone, and I would guess that if you're listening tonight, it's probably because your own life has been touched by it in some way. Sadly, I'm one of those people. I lost my mom just 5 years ago to it, and I also lost my mother-in-law when she was only in her 60s. That was really tough. She was very young. So I know firsthand that it's very traumatizing, for those family members and even for grandchildren, watching their grandparents, they don't understand what's happening. There's a lot of heartache when you lose someone before they actually die. And in many cases, it's years before they die, and you just have to watch that happen. There's emotional stress because you feel helpless to do anything. And there's also a lot of physical stress that takes a toll on you. And stress is a dangerous thing. Let's face it, caregiving is very hard. It's super stressful. I remember it very well. Actually, I have a friend whose dad was caring for his mom who had Alzheimer's for many years. And while it seemed like everything was going really well, apparently the dad was secretly suffering from the stress of taking care of his wife. And unfortunately, last August, it was a beautiful summer day, and I'll never forget it. We were hanging out, just enjoying the beach with our friend, when he received a call from the police. His dad had committed suicide. It was a horrible, horrible tragedy, a day we'll never forget. But this is what caregiving can do. It can really take a toll on you. And then you have to remember that there's a lot of financial stress. Many of you might have experienced this with family members who had it, and you had to hire caregivers for your mom or your dad. I know I had to at some point. You're faced with the decision to place them in an assisted living facility, and it's a tough decision, and it's a tough financial decision. I actually have another friend who called me last week because she was placing her dad in an assisted living facility in the Alzheimer's unit, and there was some miscommunication, and there was not a bed available in the Alzheimer's unit. And in order for him to get a room, he is going to have to be on a non-dementia floor and wait for a room. And the requirement is that if you have to be there, then you have to have 24-hour care if you have dementia. So this is going to cost $40,000 a month until he can get a room. And we don't know how long that will be. So the financial burden of all of this can, it can wipe people's life savings out. It's a sad, sad reality. All the way around, it's just very heart-wrenching. Perhaps you have family members with it, or you're treating patients that have it and you don't know what to do or say to them, or maybe you're personally worried about getting it yourself, but like a lot of people, you shrug it off, right? You shrug off those senior moments because you've been told that there's nothing you can do about it, so why worry about it? Well, tonight, I hope to change that perception of Alzheimer's disease to a disease that if we are proactive about it, we can ensure that we will not get it. And we can help our patients steer clear of it as well. So let's get into it. As Danny said, Alzheimer's is the 6th leading cause of death worldwide. These statistics paint a very grim picture, unfortunately. It's now the 3rd leading cause of death in the United States, with over 6 million people currently living with it. It actually threatens to wipe out our Medicare system in the next 15 years, which is not too far away. So if you're relying on Medicare, you need to be thinking about this. 1 in 10 Americans over the age of 65 is living with it. And as I mentioned, it's not just affecting them, the families are living with it too. And I don't think any of us wants to end up being the 1 out of 10. I know I certainly don't. And what used to be considered an old person's disease is really no longer that, because statistics that were gathered from Blue Cross Blue Shield insurance claims analysis in 2017 tell us that the average age of someone commercially insured and living with dementia is age 49. That's pretty astounding. And there's been a 373% increase in dementia in young people, ages 30 to 44. The thinking behind this is that it's our stressful modern lifestyle, all of our, media, social media, where we do very little to unwind ourselves from that. And then you have our sad American diet, which is loaded with processed foods and sugar. We have an unhealthier food supply than we've ever had, where the nutrients in our food are being depleted, as well as our increasingly toxic environment that we're exposed to. And then in recent years, we also have the lingering effects of long COVID, which is exacerbating the problem. Additionally, we have 75 million Americans that carry the ApoE4 gene, which is the genetic predisposition, placing them at an increased risk for it. And that's a quarter of our population. So this, as you can see, is a really big deal. And you can see here that while we have made some good progress with reducing deaths from heart disease and stroke and even HIV, deaths from Alzheimer's is still skyrocketing. I show you this because I really believe that we have an ethical responsibility to do something about it by taking control of our own health. So we don't have to suffer this fate, and our children don't have to watch their parents go down the same path as their grandparents did. But I also see this as a huge opportunity in dentistry, because we're really the only ones who know just how important oral health is to overall health. And as I'll share with you tonight, oral health plays a key role in the prevention and reversal of Alzheimer's disease. So we're really uniquely positioned to stand up for root cause medicine and stand out in our community. Because think about it, who's talking about Alzheimer's in your community? Maybe the Alzheimer's Association. They actually send a message that there's nothing you can do about it. And because they get their funding from the pharmaceutical companies, they're really not willing to be open-minded to the fact that there may be a way to prevent it, or especially to reverse it, at least not yet. And the general population is worried about it. I mean, Alzheimer's is a common topic of conversation, and I think people are really looking for hope. So we have an opportunity to bring them that hope, to make a true impact through the work we're doing every day in our patients' mouths and directly into their lives. And by helping our own patients in our community, we can make an even larger impact to help reduce the global burden of Alzheimer's disease and be a part of something much bigger than ourselves. So it's really an exciting time for us in dentistry. Tonight, I will introduce you to some of the science behind the Recode 2.0 program, which is really changing the course of Alzheimer's disease so that it's no longer a death sentence. And I'll share with you how you can take action and be a part of this incredible opportunity by obtaining certification in the Recode protocol, which will not only increase your credibility with your patients, but it will also increase your credibility with the medical community. I'll show you how the certification can be a bridge to effectively partnering with medical professionals and how you can use it to build some strong referrals, because that's what we've already seen happening in our Recode certified dental practices. And it's something you can get your whole team involved in if you'd like to. And then you'll be able to drive your team with a mission, something that will inspire them to come to work every day and have a greater conviction when presenting cases. So the usual mantra we've all heard in mainstream medicine is that Alzheimer's can't be prevented, right? It's untreatable, it's progressive, and most patients don't survive beyond 3 to 11 years after they've been diagnosed. And when patients are diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease, they're generally told to go home and get their affairs in order. But Dr. Dale Bredesen has really challenged that, and he's proven it wrong with his breakthrough Recode 2.0 program. So a little background on Dr. Bredesen. He is a world-renowned UCLA neurologist and best-selling author who spent his entire professional career, over 30 years, researching the cause of Alzheimer's disease. He's published over 220 papers, he's written 3 books, and he's really devoted his whole life to this. Thank goodness. And what he discovered is that the true cause of Alzheimer's lies in identifying the over 36 known contributors, or root causes, that's what he calls them, that he's discovered that are the driving force behind Alzheimer's disease. And they're causing what he calls a network insufficiency, where essentially you're using your resources to fight against the assaults on your brain instead of building new networks. So he's developed a precision method protocol called Recode 2.0. This is the second version of it. That's why it's 2.0. And this protocol is able to slow down Alzheimer's and even reverse it in its early stages by treating each person's known contributors or root causes. His work has spanned over many years. He started with his first patients in 2012, and to date, he has helped over 5,000 people successfully reverse their cognitive decline and maintain that status for at least 7 years, which is remarkable. In 2017, he wrote his first book, The End of Alzheimer's, and started certifying physicians in his method. Now there's over 2,000 medical professionals trained in his protocol and treating patients. He later wrote his second book and third books, The End of Alzheimer's Program, which outlines the program in detail, and The First Survivors of Alzheimer's, which is the story of his first 7 patients who recovered. It's a fantastic book to read because it shares the journey that each of them went through in their own words. And in 2021, that's when he really focused in on the oral contributors to cognitive decline. And that's when he determined that it was necessary to bring dentistry into this program. And that's when he started his Recode for Dental Professional certification. And as Danny said, last year in August of 2022, his first clinical trial was finally published in the Journal of Alzheimer's Disease. That was great. So this clinical trial was a real turning point because it proved to the public that there is finally hope for Alzheimer's. If you'd like to read the study, you can snap a picture of the citation here or find it on the Apollo Health website, which I'm going to introduce you to in a little bit. But just to summarize the study, in this trial, he took 25 patients with Alzheimer's disease who had mild cognitive impairment. And each of them were evaluated for all of these contributors that he has uncovered. So these include things like markers of chronic inflammation and chronic infection, insulin resistance, gut dysbiosis, vascular disease, hormone insufficiencies, nutrient deficiencies, nocturnal hypoxemia, all different types of toxins and other biochemical contributors, along with genetic testing too. And these patients received brain MRIs with volumetrics at baseline and then at the study conclusion. And they were treated for 9 months with his personalized precision medicine protocol that addressed each person's individual contributors. And then their cognition was assessed at 0, 3, 6, and 9 months using several different neurocognitive screening assessments. And as you can see here, the results were that 84% of the patients improved in their cognition. So the 12% decline that you see here was mainly due to patients that didn't follow the protocol. They didn't
Quick
follow.
question, Geraldine, for you concerning
Yes.
the study. Did they do before and after MRI volumetric measures to see if they could observe any structural changes in the brain?
Yes, to answer your question, the patients did receive volumetric MRIs, and so that's a good question. I don't have that information, but I'm sure, yes, because they did them, they must have that data as to what changed in the brain specifically.
Okay.
So the beauty of this really is that, it showed the world that Recode works. And he's now been invited to publish a second clinical trial that is being done right now on 100 patients. And what's really exciting and really important here is that this protocol takes a team, and dentistry is a critical cog in this wheel of success. It takes providers that are willing to work collaboratively to help the patients on their journey, and it's quite a journey to recover. So no one practitioner can really do it alone. We need dental professionals, we need health coaches and physicians. They're all vitally important on the team. So it's very exciting for dentistry that we have this opportunity to get involved. So the science behind Recode. There's a lot of in-depth science of the protocol, and it's outlined in detail in the certification training. But let me just touch upon a few important points. And we'll start with the amyloid beta plaque hypothesis that so many of us are familiar with. This is the most widely accepted theory on what causes Alzheimer's disease, and it's what researchers have been focusing on for so many years. The research tells us that amyloid beta clumps together and it forms deposits in the brain, triggering the neurodegenerative process that creates this neuroinflammation, tau tangle formation, synaptic dysfunction, and cell death. And that leads to the loss of cognitive ability, the memory loss, and the downsizing of the brain. So the idea here is that it's the amyloid plaque that is the cause of the problem. And this is, understandably why amyloid beta has been the target of all the drugs that have been developed to combat Alzheimer's disease. They're believing that if they can get rid of the plaque, then they can get rid of the disease. And, it sounds like it makes sense. But in fact, what Dr. Bredesen teaches us is that the amyloid beta plaque is a protective mechanism. It's a part of our innate immune system that develops in response to these numerous assaults attacking the brain. So infectious agents like fungi and bacteria and viruses and toxins and other inflammatory processes, they infiltrate the brain and they attack it. And this causes this neurodegenerative process as a protective mechanism. And the result is this shrinking back or this pulling away from these assaults. So even if you could remove the amyloid beta, you're still not removing the root cause of the problem, these assaults, right? So that the amyloid beta would just continue to develop. It really makes a lot of sense. And then at the heart of Alzheimer's lies this master switch. It's called the APP, the amyloid precursor protein. And it protrudes excuse me, from your brain cells. And the APP responds in one of two ways, depending on its environment. So when you're really healthy, right, you've got optimal levels of nutrients and hormones to support your brain. There's no pathogens or inflammation, and you don't have any major exposure to toxins, and you don't have insulin resistance. Your amyloid precursor protein is cleaved or cut one time, okay? And this signals growth. It results in what's known as synaptoblastic signaling, where you make the synapses or the connections in your brain that are needed for memories and for cognition. But on the other hand, if you have a lack of support, so whether it's from nutrients, hormones, or the many different growth factors that he evaluates, and your brain is being attacked by inflammation, so maybe you do have insulin resistance, or you do have bacteria or toxin exposure, in order to combat these insults, your APP is cleaved at 3 different sites. And this results in the amyloid beta being created. And this is what's known as synaptoclastic signaling, where the synapses are actually removed. You get synaptic loss, and then the retraction and cell death occur as a protective mechanism. It's really very interesting. There's also a genetic propensity for Alzheimer's disease that I mentioned called the ApoE4 gene. So the ApoE4 gene provides instructions for making a protein called apolipoprotein E. And that protein combines with fats in our body to form molecules called lipoproteins that we're all probably familiar with. And lipoproteins are responsible for packaging our cholesterol and other fats and then carrying them through our bloodstream, right? We all have 2 copies, one from our mother and one from our father. And the major alleles are called E2, E3, and E4. The most common allele is E3, which is found in more than half of the general population. The E4 version of the ApoE gene increases are risks for developing Alzheimer's. It doesn't mean that you're going to get it. It simply means that you're at higher risk. And people who inherit one copy of the ApoE4 gene have a 30% increased risk of developing it. There's about 75 million Americans that have one copy. And those who inherit two copies of the allele are at an even greater risk, 50% more likely to get it. And some studies are showing now up to 90% higher risk. And there's about 7 million Americans with this high risk. You can get the genetic testing at 23andme.com. Your physician can order it. There's several avenues for you to get the testing if you want to. You know, many people have thought they don't want to be tested because they don't want to know. They don't want to know if they have it. But now, with this new hope, we're really encouraging people to consider getting the testing because we know there's something that you can actually do about it. And there's this wonderful website that you see here called apoe4.info, where you can join in with other people who have it for discussion forums and conversation and support around it. The website was developed by Julie Gregory. She's one of the first survivors of Alzheimer's who you will meet in the certification training if you take it. You know, this slide is great because it really demonstrates nicely how the pharmaceutical approach, which has been focused on developing one drug to target amyloid beta, has really failed us. We know these drugs don't work, and Dr. Bredesen always says there's something fundamentally wrong with this approach. There's been over 400 failed clinical trials and billions of dollars spent to develop these drugs, and they just haven't been able to prevent or reverse Alzheimer's disease, but they continue forward, right? And you can see here that the Recode protocol has actually moved the needle and is reversing it. So Recode shows us that if we can address these underlying problems and patch these holes in the roof, as they're known, or these contributors, then we can really see how this disease can be reversed, and that's exactly what the Bredesen protocol does. Dr. Bredesen says that if you were to try to develop one drug to prevent Alzheimer's disease, it would have to address dozens and dozens of biochemical processes that are involved with all these contributors and all of this neurodegeneration, and it's just not possible. So it's really all about root causes. The big picture concept is that there's just not one cause of Alzheimer's disease. There's many, right? It's anything that gets into the brain and causes it to have to defend itself, and this causes damage. And we call these things that get into the brain dementigens. So, you know, whether it's the glycemic byproducts that are created from having high blood sugar, or whether it's chronic inflammation or oral pathogens from gum disease or gut dysbiosis, heart disease, you know, viruses, Epstein-Barr, Lyme disease, Dr. Bredesen's uncovering more and more contributors all the time. I think someone mentioned he's up to about 45 known contributors now. In this case, the brain triggers inflammation, and then inflammation drives the amyloid beta plaques, and the inflammation doesn't go away until you resolve it. So really the goal is to remove these insults and change the patient's biochemistry so you can provide optimal conditions for the brain to then thrive again. And as you can see here, some of what's being taught to Recode providers is what we as dental professionals specialize in, things like sleep breathing disorders and gum infections and heavy metal exposure pertaining to the mercury amalgams in our patients' fillings, right? The mercury. So how does a Recode doctor know what to treat? Well, in order to determine what needs to be treated, the Recode physician starts with what's called a cognoscopy. So much like we're all familiar with having a colonoscopy that we do routinely to inspect the colon, it's recommended to start having a cognoscopy. So we're inspecting what might be affecting the cognition. Patients get this deep dive assessment, and it includes all of what you see here to determine their risk factors. And then each person's known contributors are identified to determine what's driving their own cognitive decline. So it helps to determine what's causing the neurons to pull back and signal this production of the amyloid beta. and it helps establish what can then be done to reverse it, right? So all of these assessments that you see here are done, and you can see that a physician is responsible for gathering the information pertaining to the things that we have highlighted here that we in dentistry are specializing in. So patients need to have oral pathogen testing, and they have to have an airway assessment, and they need to have their amalgams evaluated. So this is why physicians are now partnering with dental professionals who can assist them, and that's where this great collaboration comes in. You know, it's an absolute must. If you're going to get the patient well on the program, you have to work as a team. And then once this information is gathered, then it's categorized to help sort out where the priorities lie for each patient. So Dr. Bredesen defines 6 different categories of cognitive decline so that the treatment can be determined. You'll see here type 1 is inflammatory, also known as hot. So if you have chronic inflammation, you know, from bacteria or viruses, oral pathogens or candida, there's a host of things, then you have inflammatory. Type 2 is trophic, also known as cold. This is when you don't have the support necessary to maintain the synaptic connections in your brain. And we have over 500 trillion synapses. So you need to have, you know, proper support for your brain. If you have sublevels of hormones and nutrients and cell growth factors, then you fall into this category. And something I learned very interesting is that for our women in the audience is that estrogen is it's a very important hormone for our brain. So think about this as you approach menopause. A lot of people don't know about that. And there's a type 1.5, which is glucose driven. So it's glycotoxic. This is also known as sweet. So if you have diabetes, if you have high blood sugar or insulin resistance, as we know 80 million Americans do, and so many of them seated in our dental chairs every day, right? This is called 1.5 because it bears the features of both chronic inflammation type 1 and then the reduced trophic growth support type 2. And then you have type 3, which is toxicities, also known as vile. If you've had exposure to any of the many toxins that are assessed, then you have this type 3. So mercury and mold are the major players in Alzheimer's disease that you would learn about. Type 4 is vascular, also known as pale. So if you have heart disease, of course you have leaky veins and the pipes don't work, there's no way you can support your brain properly. So this is very important. And then type 5 is traumatic. They also call this dazed. So these are people with a history of head trauma. Of course, there's nothing to be done regarding root causes here, but of course, supporting the brain is very important because these people are much more susceptible to Alzheimer's disease. I have a son with a history of traumatic brain injury, and so he falls into this category. And I know firsthand that it takes years for the brain to recover. Thank goodness for neuroplasticity because he's getting better, but you can bet that I'm making sure he knows exactly what he has to do to facilitate continued healing as he grows older. You actually might have a combination of these things, but some of them will stand out as being like the predominant ones, and those are the ones that the physician will start to focus on first. All of this information is gathered, and then they use an algorithm to create like a 50 to 65 page report. It's a customized Recode report, and it serves as a guide to treatment for each patient and for their physician. So let's just think for a moment about the patients that you saw today, for example. You know, how many of them had diseases that could be placed in one of these categories? Patients with periodontal disease and diabetes, heart disease. You saw patients with autoimmune disorders and other illnesses. And you saw many patients, I'm sure, that have mercury amalgams, so there may be toxicity there. When you have patients that may be experiencing senior moments or be concerned about cognitive decline, like these are the things that should come to your mind, right? How can you guide them? What information can you provide for them? Dentistry is extremely important to this mission. So next, the plan is put in place, and this revolves around focusing on what's known as the 3 R's: remove, resilience, and rebuild. So remove is just what it sounds like. It's identifying each person's known contributors and removing them. And resilience is doing everything possible to repair their dysfunctions and then put them back in a state of optimal biochemistry so that they're ready to rebuild. And then the rebuilding focuses on what each person can do to improve their synapses and create growth. And the rebuilding focuses on what's called the Bredesen 7. So these are the 7 lifestyle strategies that contribute to healing and support the brain's neuroplasticity, which is the ability to make new connections. These are the risk factors that we can all control. So we can use these to build a healthy brain. And actually, lifestyle alone can reduce your risk of getting Alzheimer's disease by 60%. So there's a lot to be said about, leading a healthy lifestyle. The certification training actually has over 7 hours devoted to just these 7 habits. And it starts with nutrition. So I can't get in depth about all of them, but I do want you to have an overview, particularly regarding the nutritional aspect. So looking at this, the nutrition, the Bredesen protocol utilizes what's called the Keto Flex 12-3 diet, which is a plant-rich, low-carb diet to produce ketones to support the brain and create metabolic flexibility. So the keto part means to produce ketones, right? So breaking down our fats, we're getting in a state of ketosis, producing ketones, which are really an excellent source of fuel for the brain. And it also creates BDNF, so brain-derived neurotrophic factor, to help create those synapses. And then the flex refers to the ability to have metabolic flexibility, where your body has the ability to metabolize fat or glucose as fuel, while still being able to maintain its insulin sensitivity. And it also means that it's a flexible diet. So if they want to, you can include animal products. They're not off the table. But we're talking about lots of green leafy vegetables and other vegetables that are high in antioxidants and phytonutrients, as well as nuts and seeds and olive oil. He recommends high polyphenol olive oil, and fatty fish such as salmon, which is rich in fatty acids, and lots of berries. I think we all know how great berries are, right? There was a study out of the UK showing that eating 75 blueberries a day actually improved your executive functioning, even strengthened your short-term memory, and I think improved reaction time. So that's about a pint of blueberries. That's something I think we could all strive for. And then don't forget water. Water is really important because proper water intake is necessary for the chemical reactions in our brains. And as dental professionals, I think we're all notoriously dehydrated. How many times have you filled up your water bottle in the morning, right? And then you head into your operatory and put it on the counter, and then halfway through your day, you realize you haven't even touched it. It's very important. So get on that water. And lastly, the 12-3, it refers to the amount of time that you're fasting each day. So fasting is very important. At least 12 hours between the end of dinner and the start of your next meal, and at least 3 hours before bedtime to allow your body to rest and digest properly. And I wanted to mention for water intake, you should at least be drinking at least half of your body weight in ounces. If you don't know how much water you should be taking in, at least that much. That's like a good starting point. So let's go back to the wheel. Exercise is the next strategy. Cardio, of course, for oxygenation, and we need strength training because that helps to improve our insulin sensitivity. And I was watching today, I was noticing on Instagram today, Dr. Bredesen mentioned that decreased muscle function is linked to a 2-time increase risk of dementia. So get your weights out and start making sure you're building muscle. And then sleep is next. So when we're in deep sleep, our microglial lymphatic system acts as a type of washing machine to clean out the amyloid beta in our brain. So proper sleep is vital, right? As well as receiving nighttime oxygenation. So think about this when you see a patient that's CPAP intolerant, and share this information with them. It might make them think twice about taking some action and getting some treatment. You need at least 1 hour of deep sleep. You should be getting about 7 to 8 hours total. There's a lot of gadgets on the market now. I use that Aura ring to track my sleep. Kind of a funny story, but my son's girlfriend was here for the weekend, and being 27 years old, she popped out of bed at 6 o'clock in the morning to go for her run, and all bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. And I started talking to her about my Aura ring, and she actually has one too. And we looked at it, and darn it, she got 4 hours of deep sleep. I was really jealous. I think I only had about an hour that night. The next thing on the wheel is stress, and that's what we all live with, and it's dangerous, right? Unresolved chronic stress leads to excess cortisol, and that damages our brain cells and it shrinks the brain. So practicing some form of stress reduction activity like yoga, meditation, there's a lot of breathing programs out now, deep breathing programs. They've been proven to lower stress and create a positive physiological effect. And for our patients that have like chronic infection and inflammation, we want to be looking at the top four, the core four, we call them. We call them NESS: nutrition, exercise, sleep, and stress, because they're all tied to inflammation. And when these things aren't in check, they're just adding to that burden of chronic inflammation in the body. So encouraging them to address the oral factors that's contributing to the inflammation is important, but then going further to encourage them to address these other important areas of their life will help to make sure that they're not accumulating this chronic inflammation in their bodies. The next one is brain stimulation. So learning new things, right? It's very, very important. Brain training has been proven. 30 to 40 minutes, 3 to 4 times a week is what's been proven to beneficially grow these synapses. And there's a lot of in-depth training also in this program on light stimulation for the brain, using the violet. So I won't get into all of that. It's pretty in-depth. It's very interesting. The next one is detoxification. So of course, you think detoxification, you think you need to be under the supervision of a doctor, and you do. If you're being detoxed from, heavy metals and things, of course you need detoxification from your physician. But here on the wheel, we're talking about what we do naturally to detoxify our bodies, right? So it's very important that we have like a diet that's high in fiber and antioxidants from plants that naturally detoxify our body. And we should be looking at our water supply, making sure that our water is filtered, checking our house for mold, and if necessary, getting mold remediation. And then plastics, right? So Dr. Bredesen talks a lot about plastics, that they're in our drinking water and they're in our foods. And microplastics are capable of crossing the blood-brain barrier. So don't be drinking out of plastic bottles, that's for sure. Don't be putting your food in plastic containers. These are all things that we can limit, as well as looking at all of the things that might be in our cosmetics, shampoos. There's a lot. It's pretty extensive. And then the next one is supplements. So very specific supplements are recommended that you will learn about in depth in the training. But there's things like mushrooms. Mushrooms are very powerful. There's all different kinds, like lion's mane. That's a very strong one. And then there's other things like probiotics that we talk about, and theanine and taurine. These are all important supplements for the brain. And it's important to mention that, if you look at this wheel and you think, wow, I'm doing pretty good. Like, I exercise, and, I go to yoga, and I have clean products in my house. That's great. But if you're not following, pretty much all of this, you're not going to be growing new synapses. That's just how it works. The most important one, I think, would be the nutrition. So this Keto Flex is really important. It's really beneficial. Okay, so what are MDs and coaches learning when they get their training in the Recode 2.0 protocol? Well, they delve into a lot of areas of health, but what's important for us is that the physicians and coaches are being trained to understand these aspects of oral health that we're familiar with that directly affect their patients. So periodontitis and dental infection, airway, TMJ, mercury amalgams, like these are very important, and the Recode doctors are learning about them. So in the area of periodontitis, they're learning that periodontal disease is not just inflammation, but it's an infectious disease. That oral bacteria can travel to distant organs, contributing to the, many systemic diseases, and that oral pathogens have been found in human brains and arteries. They're learning about herpes simplex and how it infiltrates the brain through the trigeminal ganglion cells, and how important that is, that patients don't just let their cold sores run their course, but they treat them with antivirals, because actually the antivirals have been shown to slow the progression of Alzheimer's disease. They're learning that not every dentist is the same and that bleeding shouldn't be tolerated. Thank goodness they're learning that, right? Because we don't want them referring to just any dentist. We want them referring to the right dentist. And they're learning that they should be seeking out dentists who can test for oral pathogens and treat appropriately and effectively to eliminate the bugs, right? And they're also learning that the microbiome of the mouth is just as important as the lower intestine. Physicians, they learn all about the gut, but they don't know much about the oral microbiome. So now they're learning about how neutral pH can help bring balance to the microbiome in the mouth. And they're learning how critical home care is, things like probiotics and like xylitol and sonic brushing and essential oils. They're starting to get the gist of this. And most importantly, they're learning that oral pathogens are really, really dangerous, that spirochetes and P. gingivalis and F. nucleatum have all got causal evidence contributing to the pathogenesis of Alzheimer's disease. Starting way back in 2011, when we all learned about Judith McClossy's research, where they performed 1,480 autopsies on the brains of those people who had passed away from Alzheimer's disease, and they were able to show that almost 94% of them had oral spirochetes in the brain. So they show that, spirochetes cause slow progressive dementia. They cause the amyloid deposition and the brain atrophy. So it's very, very dangerous. And then in 2019, of course, the research came out regarding P. gingivalis. That really took center stage, showing how the toxic protease released from P. gingivalis, called gingipane, was contributing to the pathology of Alzheimer's disease. And then the recent research just last year showed that the F. nucleatum contributes to the overgrowth of these microglial cells, right? So microglia, they're the major immune cells in the nervous system, and we need them to regulate inflammation in a healthy brain. But the overproliferation of them has been closely related to a lot of neurodegenerative diseases, including Alzheimer's and even Parkinson's disease. So these oral pathogens are all implicated in Alzheimer's. So, I hope you're screening all of your patients, not just the ones who have periodontal disease, making sure they don't have any of these dangerous bugs. There's actually a company called Quince Therapeutics. I think it was formerly called Cortisine, that has developed a drug that is in clinical trial. And this drug is being developed to block the gingipane that's being released from the PG. And this drug could actually make an impact if it gets to market, because we, as dental health professionals, I could see us using this drug to put our patients on, if we've identified them as having P. gingivalis, while we work to eliminate it, in the meantime, because we know it takes some time, right, to get rid of it. So it's kind of interesting that the first drug that might actually do something for Alzheimer's disease would be in the oral realm. And they're learning about airway, okay? So they're learning that sleep apnea is not just a lack of CPAP, and that the hippocampus, which is where Alzheimer's disease first develops, is super sensitive to oxygen deprivation. They're learning that the structure of the mouth is extremely important and begins in childhood, and that there's ways to widen out the jaws and expand the airway. They're learning how valuable cone beam CAT scans are for airway evaluation, and that their Recode patients need to have a proper airway assessment. So those practices that are doing airway dentistry are really in the right place at the right time, I think. And even if you're not treating sleep disorders, you'll still be able to screen your patients and then refer them out for treatment. They're learning also about upper airway resistance syndrome and how it impairs sleep, just like obstructive sleep apnea. So medical doctors are, they're taking dentists very seriously. So I just want to bring up this important study because it's not in the Recode training. It will be soon, but Dr. Bredesen mentions it frequently in his ongoing podcasts and webinars because it's so important. And since we have so many dentists that are evaluating and treating for airway, I thought it was worth mentioning. It was presented in the Annals of Neurology in 2020. It shows how the mean oxygen saturation during sleep is related to a specific brain atrophy pattern. Specifically, what it's concluding here is it shows that there's a direct correlation between the mean nocturnal oxygen saturation and the volume of the hippocampus. So these are the highlights of the study, if you want to snap a picture of it. The study involved 775 participants, and they performed a brain MRI with volumetric measurements and full PSGs on each person. And it showed that the mean oxygen saturation while sleeping was associated with a volume loss in the hippocampus, also the thalamus and the putamen. These are all areas that are known to be sensitive to hypoxia. But hippocampus volume loss is a known finding in Alzheimer's disease. So this is very important for those of us that are treating airway, right? What's interesting is that they showed no association of the brain volumes with the apnea-hypopnea index, the lowest oxygen saturation, the time that was less than 90%, or the ODI, the number of times a person's oxygen drops while they're sleeping. So I think this is fascinating because these are some of the most common data points that we usually look at in dentistry when we're evaluating our patients' sleep tests and treating them. Dr. Bredesen's protocol recommends a mean nocturnal oxygen saturation of at least 96%, and he recommends that everyone track their own with a continuous pulse oximeter. I think this would be especially important to be doing this to monitor your sleep treatment effectiveness if you are treating sleep apnea, and that's really why I wanted to bring it up. Okay, they're also learning about the importance of mercury as a neurotoxin. So there's a lot of controversy, we all know that, about mercury, but Dr. Bredesen, his training outlines just how neurotoxic mercury is and how detrimental it is to our brains, and he always states that it requires dental intervention. There's no question about it. Mercury breaks down the synapses in our brain. It induces a lot of the biochemistry that you find in Alzheimer's. It gets released into our system when we chew and grind our teeth and when we eat hot foods. It's absorbed by our lungs. It gets passed to the rest of our body. It accumulates in our organs, and most importantly here in our brain. It also induces leaky gut when it gets into the intestines. So physicians are learning to find out whether their patients have amalgam fillings in their mouths and then get them to a dentist that can assess them. And there is a protocol that's been developed, which you will learn about in the training, but essentially it involves, getting them to a dentist to assess the amalgams and see if they're broken down. And then if they are broken down, of course, getting them removed safely and slowly. And if you're not doing safe amalgam removal, you can still be involved in Recode and then refer out to those dentists that are doing safe amalgam removal. And if the amalgams aren't broken down, they still recommend that the patient be tested for mercury toxicity, because it doesn't mean that they don't have mercury poisoning, right? The testing is very sensitive. It can differentiate whether it comes from fish or inorganic mercury from amalgam. So it's really great testing. Okay, so this is the Apollo Health website. And this is, you can all go to this website. I put the URL here on the slide underneath the man on the mountain there, apollohealthco.com. Okay, so this website provides all of the information on Dr. Bredesen, his history, the published research, and Apollo Health, as I said, created an algorithm. And this allows for this extensive personalized report to be obtained by each participant after they've completed their assessments, which is a health history, medical questionnaires, they do lab testing, they do several cognitive assessments, and there's a wealth of resources that aid in the implementation of the protocol. So like there's a list of trained practitioners, so you can find a doctor. If you were to get certified, you would be listed on here as a Recode dental professional. There's support communities, like individual and group coaching is available. They have educational guides, every aspect of the Bredesen 7. You get your own portal to the website, and there's even a mobile app that goes on your phone, which is great. You'll see that there's a button here in the center that says Assess My Cognition. So this is where you can click to take a free, fun 15-minute assessment, a cognitive quotient assessment, to see how you do. And I encourage everyone to take this test. It's fun. I think that it's worth doing to see where you're at with your own cognition. Don't be afraid to do it. The results of this assessment are then given to the patient. You get a printout of them, and then you're guided into a program that meets your needs based on your results. So it's important to know that there's not just a reversal program called Recode, but there's also a prevention program called Precode. So patients will enroll in the appropriate program. So for example, if the results of the assessment are problematic, then they're guided to take additional cognitive assessments, and then they're offered the Recode reversal program. And if their assessment doesn't show a concern, but maybe they're interested in preventing cognitive decline, then they're guided into the Precode program. So these are subscription-based programs. You don't need to be connected to a Recode physician if you're in the prevention, the Precode program. This means that you and all of your patients can participate in the prevention program if you'd like. Both programs will provide cognitive testing, and blood testing is available, but they're a bit different because, of course, the labs are much more extensive for the Recode patient, as you can imagine, and they will be asked to select a physician because they're going to have to have a physician and a dentist on board to work with for their extensive treatment. And the fees for these programs, the Precode is $39.99 a month. That's the Precode, and the Recode is $75 a month. So they're fairly affordable. So what does the Recode 2.0 certification include? Well, there are no new dental skills required. You just do what you've naturally been doing, all the things that we've talked about, and you just stay in your lane, and physicians stay in their lane. You'll receive the complete training course that medical professionals receive, which has 36 hours of education on the protocol. However, what we've done is we've narrowed down what's most important for dental professionals. So there's modules that are designated as required, and these are targeted for dental professionals, and these amount to 18 hours. So it's 18 hours of training. You'll receive a Recode certificate, which has 18 continuing education credits. It's a medical certificate signed by Dr. Bredesen. So you'll be able to hang it in your operatory. People will, see that you have this certification. And then you'll go through an onboarding process with Apollo Health to be able to be listed as a certified Recode dental professional so patients can find you. The feedback from those that have been certified has been really phenomenal. I mean, everybody finds it extremely valuable. The certification empowers you, gives you a lot of confidence. It provides you with a great tool that bridges the gap between medicine and dentistry. And knowledge is power, right? So you do get a lot of confidence to have effective discussions regarding oral systemic health with patients, and patients start listening because nobody wants to get Alzheimer's. So you're speaking about something that really hits home for them. And because of this, case presentation generally goes up. So on this slide, you can see that these were our, this is the synopsis of our first 5 beta practices that we tracked the data. They registered their teams, they completed their training, and then their total practice case acceptance, it increased, and it ranged from 20,000 to 80,000 in just the first month on the 5 practices. But there was an average increase across the practices of just over 39,000 in the first month. Which was really great to see. And this is testimony from one of the hygienists that completed the Recode certification. I thought it was great. She said, "I've had a noticeable shift in my identity, and I feel confident in discussing what I've learned with my patients. In my first 2 weeks after Recode certification, I saw 30 patients. Out of the 30 patients, 11 of them accepted old treatment plans that were sitting on the shelf." So you can see that it's, it's powerful and meaningful training. And we all have patients that have old treatments sitting on the shelf. And there's some patients that we work for years to try to get them to treatment, right? Okay, so I have a little video here. And this is a video. We asked one of our dentists, Dr. Eileen Nutzel out of Chicago Heights, Illinois, how dementia certification impacted her practice and her team. And she shares that in this video. So I'm hoping you can hear it through this format that we're using tonight. So I'm going to go ahead and play it.
Our hygiene numbers are astronomical, and it's amazing. And it's the weirdest thing because for years, Joe and I have been hygiene complete health, and and then out of nowhere, it like became part of their DNA. And now there's like no other talk besides that. It was so weird, like the light switch clicked and we weren't there to see it, but it's happened. Really, the number of oral myperiopaths they've been doing is just ridiculous. We went from crickets to now like every other patient is like, yep, I'll do that, not a problem. So it's just amazing. The patients are loving it. They're willing to do it without a problem. So, it's exciting. They're running with it. They're actually opening up extra hours in their schedules to fit more people in.
Were you able to hear that?
You may want to summarize a bit. It was audible, but not
okay. Yeah,
not high fidelity.
It's really it's really great to hear what she has to say, because she talks about how they do the myperiopath oral DNA testing in their practice, and she talks about how the number of myperiopaths went from crickets to everybody doing it. So they went from not being able to get their patients to move to even get testing to now everybody wants to do testing, so much so that their hygienists have opened up extra hours in their schedule just to accommodate the patients that need testing. And that was pretty amazing.
Great summary. Thank you.
Yeah. So through the Complete Health Heroes, we do offer a concierge implementation program. So I would suggest looking into this if you're interested in certifying multiple team members, because with this program, you'll receive the ability to certify team members at a discounted rate, and you'll be provided with a team orientation kickoff workshop. We'll give you an online training course on the Complete Health methodology. And this is a system that ensures teamwork and teaches your team how to talk to your patients for better case acceptance. But you'll also be given access to our client toolbox. This is where you'll find research on the oral Alzheimer's connection, along with a lot of chairside and marketing tools to help your practice, stand out in your community and become the Alzheimer's prevention and reversal practice in your area. And lastly, you'll receive a team implementation strategy workshop where we'll show you how to use all of the tools in our toolbox. And we'll also provide you with a direct introduction to any Recode physicians and health coaches that are in your area, so you can start to build these relationships and these cross referrals. So this is also another video. I'll play it for those that might have been able to hear. Should I play it, Danny, or was it you even able to hear it?
Yeah, go ahead and play it because it is audible, but
Okay.
I'm just can't vouch for the fidelity for all of our attendees.
Right. Okay. So this is Dr. John Bakke from Nevada, and he's talking about his experience of being introduced to a physician and health coach in his area.
How receptive were they to talking to you about this? Yeah, they were very receptive. They seemed excited to start to build a partnership with us and our offices to be able to really help their patients. So they were very open to it, and I think it's going to be a great relationship going forward. So what was the health coach's response? The health coach was really excited to have somebody to refer to, and I think she is going to be a great partner for us because she's going to build value in what we do. So I expect when patients come to see us, they're going to have a lot of knowledge about what we do and what we can do for them. That'll make providing services for them easier.
Okay, so basically what Dr. Bakke is saying is that the health coach and the physician were excited to build partnerships with him. He mentioned something really important, and that is that when patients are referred from a health coach or a physician, those professionals have already built the value into the services that we provide. So it's easier for us to provide them. It makes our job a lot easier. So they were super excited to be connected.
And for those of you who don't know, that was Dr. Chip Whitney in the video with Dr. Bakke.
Thanks for mentioning that. I appreciate that.
Sure.
So as you can all see, this training is truly about saving lives. And I wanted to share this quote from Dr. Bredesen. Everyone knows someone who's survived cancer, but nobody knows someone who has survived Alzheimer's until now. I have the pleasure of knowing one of Dr. Bredesen's patients that cured her Alzheimer's disease. Her story is so powerful. It's hard to believe that this can actually be done, but she's proof of it. So I'm a believer. Recode works, and that's why I share it. I share the Recode program with everyone that I know, everybody that I know, love, and care about. So we have an amazing opportunity here. Could you imagine if you were able to help a patient reverse their dementia? I mean, I think that would be an incredible story to tell. And really, dentistry is a key specialty that's needed to complete these teams and help move our mission forward. Our mission is to eliminate new cases of Alzheimer's disease by 2030. I personally found this education to be so valuable because it taught me exactly what I needed to do for myself to make sure that I don't end up like my mom. And with this certification, not only will you be able to prevent your own cognitive decline, but you'll be able to impact the lives of your patients, and then at the same time, you'll be enhancing your practice. So it's really, a win. Keep in mind that people, they don't feel the heart attack that they're going to have tomorrow. That's what Chip Whitney always says. But they do feel the cognitive decline in the form of senior moments up to 20 years before they're diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease. And that's a lot of time to change the course of this disease. So we need to start early, and we can help our patients do this as well. So please consider joining our mission. I do have something exciting here to show you. Dr. Bredesen's work has created such a huge stir that there's now a new movie that actually premiered this past weekend at the Manhattan Film Festival. It's narrated by Michael Bublé, and it really showcases the results of this life-changing treatment. So I'm going to play that here.
Only 20% of what my memory should be.
I don't think we've ever seen a failure in scientific research on this massive a scale.
No cure. Nothing can be done. Not really acceptable to us.
People are dying when they do not have to.
How many people here would like to avoid dementia?
The research that he's doing now, it's not research, he sells it.
We're targeting many factors that all contribute to this illness. These are things that you can fix.
He writes a best-selling book. This is not how it's done.
just started recognizing people. It's pretty crazy how much she's improved.
Dementia is not a death sentence. There's so many things that we can do to stop it.
It really does work. Our generation will be the last generation to fear Alzheimer's disease.
So I just want to thank you all for listening tonight. And I'm going to bring up a slide here. Let's see. I think you can see that.
Go.
Yeah.
Yep.
So if this feels like something that you are drawn to and that you might want to participate to obtain the certification, then your next step would be you could either scan the QR code here. That would take you directly to the registration where you can also view the curriculum, or you could also visit recodedentaltraining.com to learn more. You can also go to the apollohealthco.com website. It's in multiple places, so you'll be able to see all of the information. And of course, you can always email me with questions. Danny, I don't know are there questions that might have come in that we can help answer? Because I'll leave this slide up while we answer any questions that are available.
Yeah, that would be great. And there are indeed. I just want to thank you, Geraldine, for a wonderful presentation and for sharing the good news that Alzheimer is preventable and can be treated, and the dentists play a pivotal role in that. So this is very exciting, and talk about a win-win. This is a multifaceted winning model, winning formula. So thank you very much again for sharing it and doing such a great job in the process.
Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. All right. Well, some of these questions were asked a little early in the presentation, so they may have been answered in part, but I think that the ones I'll ask could bear some clarification or repeat. First question I got was, what is the cost of certification? I know you touched on the monthly, but yeah, if you just want to review that again.
Absolutely. Okay, so we have really done our best to make sure that this training is affordable for all dental professionals. So the fee for Recode certification is $19.99 per person. And I mentioned that there is a discount if you certify multiple team members. That rate gets reduced. The dentist, after the first person is registered, it is then $14.99 for additional team members. Excuse me. And that concierge program that I spoke about, that Complete Health Heroes delivers, that is also $14.99. So very reasonable for for a team or an individual to get certified.
Very good. Next question is genetic testing for patients a part of your offering? Is it, as you mentioned, yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so what we're asking is that when you go through the training, you're going to learn all about the genetic testing. You'll learn where to get the testing, and so no, we are not asking dental professionals, because that's kind of stepping out of our realm, right? So we're just asking them to share the information with their patients and guide them to where they can get the genetic testing. And
very good.
We do we do offer a tool for that.
Thanks for that clarification. Next question, can I get certified as a hygienist if my dentist is not a part of this?
Absolutely. You are a standalone individual participant, and the fee would be $19.99. You will be amazed at how your conversations will change with your patients. I really believe that as a hygienist, practicing for so many years, it's hard to get up every day and do the same thing over and over. We need something to get us excited about treating our patients. And if there's not a greater cause, a more motivating thing to help your patients move to treatment, I don't know what else it would be, because this is really exciting.
Well, and am I correct in assuming that the certification training does not just entail the clinical side, but also the patient communications, protocols, some verbal skills, that sort of thing?
In the training?
Yes.
Is that in the training? So the training that is given by Apollo Health is the training on Recode. So this is it's very in-depth. You can read the entire curriculum online. It is, everything from, the science, the background, the cognoscopy, the subtypes of Alzheimer's disease, the pathogens, the bioidentical hormone replacement therapy, and toxins and detoxification and dental health and genetics. I mean, it's very extensive, but the communications within the team, they come from, if you were to join the concierge program that we offer, then we offer an online training specifically called Abundance University that takes you through developing a system in your practice to have these conversations and proper handoffs and making sure that you're helping get to the correct, personal motivator for your patient, and proper trust transfer and all of those things that are important in communication.
Excellent. All right, because that's vital. You can have the greatest product they're offering, but if you don't have the tools and the confidence to communicate it effectively, then it's going to do not as much good. So I'm glad to hear that is available as well.
Yeah.
All right. How long does certification take to complete?
Okay, so it is 18 hours, no matter how you look at it. We do have, what I've done is created a handout. I usually give this to anyone who contacts me for it, and it will outline how you could do it in 3 days, how you could do it in 5 days, and how you could do it in 8 days. It breaks it down, like do these modules if you want to do it in 3 days, do it, do these on day 1, these on day 2, these on day 3. You get the gist of that? I did my training in 3 days. I thought that was really great because as you go along, there are quizzes and then there is a final test, so to speak. So it's fresh in your mind. I did a Friday, Saturday, Sunday. A lot of teams have done it that way. And then we have teams that have done it, in 8 days. Or they've even taken longer. Some teams do it in 12 days. But, I wouldn't.
So it's flexible. You can work at your own pace. Sounds like.
Yeah, but I wouldn't suggest you do it
Stretching it.
Too stretched out, because we have had a couple of teams do that and they seem to not retain the information, as well, because they're going too slow. Yeah.
Okay. I think one of your slides may have addressed how one can learn more about Dr. Bredesen, but can you share, I think, the link or other ways that one can learn more about Dr. Bredesen and follow his work?
Oh, absolutely. The first thing I would do would be to go to the Apollo Health website, because I did mention that. It's all there. But if you follow him on Instagram or Facebook, okay, so you're looking to follow Dr. Dale Bredesen, okay, you're not going to believe he posts daily about the science, and it's fascinating. Every single day he's posting something about the science because he's uncovering and learning more and more. So
there's so many different contributors. It's fascinating, the various things that can affect cognitive decline, and really getting at the cause. So I thought that was very enlightening and interesting. I didn't realize just how broad the contributing factors are.
They're pretty incredible. Something like microplastics. I just think that's, we all know, like, maybe we shouldn't use plastic. But I don't think a lot of people know that there's plastics in our water, right? So, that's like big. He mentioned that on one of his Instagrams, and that's why I follow him every day to pick up little tidbits here and there. The other way I think that it would be really great is, I don't know if we have dental professionals out there that are part of AOSH or the IAOMT or the AAPMD, but those organizations team up every year. And we have what's called Collaboration Cures. That meeting is held this year. It's going to be held in Orlando, and it's September 7th to the 9th. And this year, Dr. Bredesen will be the keynote. So that will be an exciting conference.
Wonderful.
We'll actually be holding a 4-hour workshop at that meeting on the Recode program. And we're also going to be having an invitation-only event that weekend for any teams, any dental professionals that are enrolled in the program. They'll be able to meet with Dr. Bredesen.
Oh, that's quite a bonus.
Yeah.
Last question we have time for is there an insurance code that will cover Precode 2.0?
No, there is not. So here's what's interesting. They have now, you know, that Keto Flex diet that I mentioned, right? They have just rolled out the Keto Flex home meals. So if you have people that are, you know, involved in the Recode program and they need these, you know, the Precode, and you want to order the meals, you can have the meals delivered to you, which I think is great. But the greatest thing is they are right in the process because they're moving to get those meals covered by Medicare. And then the next step is to get the Recode itself covered by Medicare. So it's all in process. It's all, you know, it's all just down the road a little bit.
Well, that's hopeful. Yep.
Very hopeful.
That'd be the better use of the healthcare dollars on prevention than on treatment. Maybe we won't get bankrupt quite so early, so soon. Yep. All right. Well, with that, let me just remind everybody that in a few days you will receive an email detailing how to apply to receive your 1 1/2 hours of CE for having attended this course. And I now would like to invite you to mark your calendars for Thursday, July 20th, when my very special guests will be Doctors Barb McClatchy, DDS, and Eric Goulder, MD, whose presentation is titled, "On a Good Day We Save a Smile, on a Great Day We Save a Life. Become the medical/dental collaborators your patients deserve." Doctors McClatchy and Goulder are on a mission to enrich the quality of life for every patient. Their practice, Complete Health Dentistry of Columbus, employs a team of professionals specializing in general restorative dentistry and use research-based methods to ensure optimal oral and cardiovascular health. As an attendee, you will learn to understand the value of medical-dental collaboration and how we as healthcare providers can impact our patients' total body health, the benefit that periodontal treatment has on medical inflammatory testing through actual case studies, the value of the carotid intima media thickness scan as it relates to periodontal therapy, and how a multifaceted approach to periodontal disease can impact total body inflammatory burden and decrease your patient's overall risk for a cardiovascular event. It all happens on Thursday, July 20th, so be sure to save the date and watch your inbox to register. Until then, this is Danny Bobrow thanking you for your commitment to practice perfection. Goodbye, everybody.